What is up, my dudes? Not gonna lie, this video is being made for my future self to watch in 7 months, either to console myself or so that I can save it for some other future date when a race is going to take me out. As the title of this video suggests, I am running my first ever ultramarathon this year, and specifically, I'm running it in the Alps where I live. And I'm not gonna lie, I never saw myself as the type who would want to run an ultramarathon. A little over a decade ago, actually almost 15 years now, I ran a marathon, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a brutal experience. I had undertrained, which is problem number one, but the pain was rough. And after that, I'd remember thinking, that was amazing. I was on a high. I scratched that itch now, but I also don't know if I actually want to ever sign myself up for that level of struggle again in the future. And I've kind of felt that way for a long, long time now, up until the last few months. Something in my heart has changed, and now I have done a complete 180, and I am stoked to be doing an ultra marathon. I think one of the big reasons why is this year, one of the main themes of my life is I want to become unstuck in all kinds of various ways. I feel like the last couple of years, I've gotten really comfortable at where I am in my life. It's all just felt, I don't know, not easy, but just that I'm not really getting any further. And I've pinpointed one of the main reasons why I feel this way is I haven't really set myself up for failure at all the last few years. I've just been doing what works, and I have avoided failure like the plague. And let's be honest, that's kind of actually been my entire life in some ways, but I would say, especially now, I've been just kind of lulled into allowing myself to be comfortable with things rather than doing what would actually push me further in life. So, this is all a very roundabout way to say I figured running an ultra marathon would actually be the perfect way to learn to fail in that department. And while an ultra marathon is a really big commitment, at the end of the day, the stakes are relatively low. If I do not successfully cross the finish line the first time I try this, that's okay. This doesn't mean I can't pay my bills. I'm gonna lose my visa for some sort of other really scary and anxiety inducing thing. It's just that it's hard and there are consequences of it, but they aren't life altering consequences. So it seems perfect. Of course, I'm training and preparing for my first ultra with the full intent that I would like to cross the finish line successfully. But like all big goals, sometimes things just don't go according to plan. I already feel like I've gotten a peek into this and what I might be getting myself into because this last autumn, I took a fall actually while coming down a mountain, and it wrecked me. For a couple of weeks, I could barely walk. My knee had like major pain for about 6 weeks. I actually thought I might have shattered my kneecap. It was so bad. Doctor said it was fine, so I was just hobbling for a long time. And then not only that, but I now have this like weird cut scar on my leg that just like hasn't fully healed. So needless to say, even something as silly as like just taking one fall could knock you out. I don't know what's gonna come when it comes to preparing for this race. There's all kinds of things that could set me back. When it came to choosing the right race, this was actually really hard for me to figure out because initially I hadn't thought about doing an ultra marathon. I had wanted just to stick with doing a trail race of the marathon distance, which is really challenging in its own right. But at the end of the day, this didn't quite sit right with me for a couple of reasons. One of the big ones being I've already run a marathon before, and so while doing a trail marathon is certainly hard, I knew at the end of the day that I've already done that distance, so it's not something new. And then the other thing is, this past year, I had consistently done a number of really long hiking days that were getting pretty close to marathon distance and also had even more vert than that on more technical terrain. So I knew that ultimately, if worst came to worst, I would be able to still like hike and crawl my way through the finish line and hit that time cutoff. And so the marathon just didn't feel quite big enough. And 50K also fell within that distance. On the other hand, I like swung really far in the other direction. And I was like, I'm gonna do an 100K. That would be perfect. No, that is a terrible idea. There's a really big jump between marathon distance and 100K, and my brain was not willing to see the in-betweens with that. Luckily, after some talking with my husband, he was able to talk me down to a level of reality with that and realize that probably isn't the smartest idea right now, and I listened. So as I continued to search, trying to figure out what the perfect race would be, and also something that would work within my actual work schedule, especially during the summer when I tend to work pretty full hours. Eventually, I was able to settle on the perfect race. It's one that's big enough that it instills fear in me. There's a high level that, or high probability of failure, yet at the same time, it's just realistic enough that I might be able to swing it. This race that I found is the Wildstrubel in Switzerland, and I am stoked for it. The Wildstrubel has multiple racing distances, with the biggest one being 110K. If you just listened to what I said a second ago, I'm not doing that distance, but the distance below that is the 70K. And the 70K, that's about 43-ish miles, has 4,600 meters of vert, which is about 15,000 feet, and then the cutoff time is 17 hours. Just thinking about that makes me feel terrified, but in the best kind of way. This is exactly what I've been looking for. Due to the nature of this race, I'm also working on trying to embrace the big, huge potential of a DNF. Did not finish. And while embrace is a weird word to use, that's honestly why I took on this challenge in the first place. I wanted to be able to do something that I really might not be able to do, at least the first time I try it. Well, of course, I don't want to actually fail at this. I did want to choose something that would force me, if I don't finish it out, to be able to pick up the pieces, move on, and learn how to take this short-term failure as not some sort of point against my character and who I am as a person, because I think that's something I've struggled with for a really long time. Well, this win, boy. Okay. I also want to clarify with this, I am certainly not naive. If I do have to DNF, it is going to suck in the moment. I can easily talk about it now because I haven't put in the time and the effort to train. I haven't gone to that race and shown up and not been able to finish. I know that it's going to be really hard if I do get to that point. But thinking about it now and preparing for it now has been really helpful to me. So as much as I'm trying to mentally prepare for that possibility now, I do know it will suck in the moment and I am going to have to go through a grieving process. And I'm also okay with that. It's just what I do after the race and how I choose to move forward. The other day I was reading about trail running blogs, all sorts of fun stuff, and I came across this quote, and it's called Wicked Trail Running, and they said, "A DNF is a moment of failure, but it doesn't define you." And I have to say, that really resonated with me, and I think the whole reason why I'm doing this. I know deep down, even though failure isn't fun, it's a necessary part of life. Growth comes from failure. If we stay within our comfort zone, we really can't progress and move forward and do the things that we want to do. And so, in its own weird way, the ultramarathon for me is the way that I'm going to step out of my comfort zone in multiple areas and facets of my life and learn to get comfortable with handling when things don't go the way I want them to, and being okay with that, and knowing that what actually matters is how I move forward after that. So feel free to follow along as I embark on this ultramarathon journey. I'm really excited to see where it takes me and to share more about it here. I think one of the big reasons I started YouTube is, I mentioned before, I want to be able to fail publicly as I do this and be okay with that, but also to be able to document the journey and the progress that I'm making, because sometimes once you've done something, you forget everything that led up to that moment. And I'm really excited to be able to share all those little moments leading up to this with you guys. And if you've done the Wildstrubel also, I would love to hear your experiences with it and any beta that you have to offer. Because like I said, I'm terrified in the best kind of way. So yeah, thanks for listening. I'm excited to share more things trail running with you guys, and especially my training plan that I'm making in the coming weeks and everything to come with that. So follow along.